Production of the PA-28 Cherokee began in 1961. As a primary trainer for pilots the world over, ask any certificated airman and they probably have a Cherokee or 172 story in their logbook. The relatively low cost of entry and economical maintenance make the Cherokee popular as a personal aircraft in addition to its training role. Thank you for joining us today on Flight Brothers FT. Today we will review the Cherokee 140 Modern by VFlyteAir and show its list of features. And for a quick overview of the Cherokee 140 Modern, two panels are included here. You get the analog gauge panel or the glass panel, which features the Aspen E1000 PFD, which we'll take a look at in more detail here momentarily. But it also has a pop-out on the panel, which that is extremely important because you'll need it for the barometric setting. It also helps with your VR mode. It says it's easier to use for that. We don't use VR here on the Flight Brothers FT, so we can't speak to how that functions. You also have a pop-out knee board. Again, we'll look at more of these. FMOD sounds, PBR textures, animated ice and rain effects, courtesy of the LiBrain plugin. In fact, if you have seen our video featuring this aircraft on the Van Nuys LDA approach, there are parts in there where you can actually see some of the rain effect. You have an integrated GTN 650 and Garmin 430 plugins as well, and of course this does come with the Garmin 430 as standard. A transponder, autopilot, ADF, and DME, and it is persistent, so it does save your states, so your switches stay in the position that they were in the last time that you flew the aircraft. With that, let's take a further look around the exterior, and then we'll move to the interior and take it for a brief flight. Each livery comes with or without wheel pans, which is selectable inside the aircraft, which we'll talk about, or I'll show you later. You can see the detail here is pretty good on the... Try and disconnect the camera here and zoom down a little bit. But the trailing link there on the nose is very nice. The tire graphics, again, are very well executed. And if we zoom in, actually here you can see a vent right here on the aircraft. Now I'll go inside and then we can actually open and close that, and it's mimicked. So let me show you that real quick. Over here on the left hand side, this spins and it's labeled open and close. So if you rotate it toward the aft end of the aircraft, it opens. So we'll spin that back and then we will go back to the exterior view. And you can see right here that door is now closed. So very neat that they've added that. Again, here's some of the detail you can see with the radiators and heat shields on the front of the engine. The brake disc calipers and the lines, all very detailed as well. We'll continue to move around here a little bit. My apologies. We're at Deer Valley Airport today, which you might see some aircraft flying around in live traffic. They, of course, are not all A319 and 20s. Mesquite is actually a call sign for a flight school up there, so it stays very busy. The pilot and co-pilot are removable. You can have them in there or not. Some of the visors, we'll play with this as well, but the visors are movable once inside. Again, I will probably show all of the available liveries here, so you can get an idea. I believe there is 12 plus a blank one, or sorry, 12 including a blank one and a VFlyteAir default livery, so to speak. And you can see they've got the fuel vents, and you've got your airports or airport. Sorry, your guess your VHF antenna aerials here. You can see how the flaps are hinged as well. Control surfaces. You can move those, and you can see the pilots are slightly animated as well. Continue on. You have your tie down ring. All very well executed. The door does open and close on the passenger side, as does this window here. We can't click that from here, but we can get it from the exterior, or sorry, the interior. And here we'll come around to the back. And of course the Piper does have a flying stab as opposed to just an elevator, so you can actually see as it pitches, you can see the control, or the trim tab or anti-servo tab moving in the opposite direction. So very neat that is modeled as well. And of course we have our nose wheel and rudder that deflect. In addition, flaps on this aircraft are manual, so you can select those with the aircraft not being powered on. And again, you can see some of the detail in that. The sandpaper texture there across the top of the wing also looks very good. And also these are vents here for the, I guess, your ventilation controls. You can, when you're inside, you can actually move those. You can grab those and move those around. We'll put the flaps back up there. And we'll go ahead now and pop inside. And again, there you can see the live traffic. And we're at Deer Valley, which is on the north side of Phoenix. We'll take a quick look around here, just familiarize ourselves. Of course, you can make the yokes disappear with a click of the button. This is, of course, the Aspen Avionics, the glass cockpit or modern version here. You can click, there's two tabs here which kind of move. If you click the panel option there, of course, you get the analogs with your standard 6-pack. You also get your takeoff checklist and then your checklist here. If we click back on glass panel, you get the takeoff over here, and on the far right side you get your V speeds over on a placard. So those are very nice, very convenient to have here. Your lighting controls are right here front and center. Your trim is indicated here, and of course your radio control panel here. The Garmin 430 will be your nav 1, nav 2 is this ADF. Your VHF nav, VHF comm radios and nav. The DME ADF here, your autopilot transponder, all pretty standard here. Your TAC is over here, as well as your suction gauge, which for those of you coming from Cessnas, I think their layout's a little more intuitive. The clock here does have minders, so you can just simply spin these to your start and stop time, and then you can keep track of your flight time that way. So there is no digital clock on here, it is an analog one. Of course, your voltmeter, fuel tank, you have left and right in this. The Piper does not have a both, so if you're coming over from the default Cessna, that is going to be a change, and your fuel control is actually here, so you'll have to remember to click that. POH I downloaded from the internet for a PA28140 said they recommended a 1 hour burn on each tank. So I believe started with the left, so you burn left, then right, then back to left for 1 hour. And that's how you do that. There is no center or both position. Kind of go from left to right here. Again, we have our Master Avionics, which is functional. You can pull the circuit breakers. And actually, now that I do that, I have not pulled these in flight to see if they work. My guess is they may. Here's your engine primer, of course your master, your starter switches. And this is kind of neat how the buttons, you get the sense that this is a a living, breathing aircraft, you know, with kind of some of the imperfections of the strobe light kind of stuck on here, and then you have the different colored end caps here for the knobs. Of course, your magneto selector here, and this key fob actually does kind of move and sway. Carb heat, this is a difference from the default Cessna as well. Of course, it is a S or an SP model, so it's fuel injected. You don't have carb heat. You have a manual push parking brake here, or push and pull brake. This is your throttle. Your mixture is over here. Again, I think Cessna nailed kind of the cockpit ergonomics a little bit better. You know, they tend to keep everything within an easy reach. Of course, in some of the entry-level general aviation aircraft, they're not that large anyway, so this probably isn't a long reach. You have cabin heat over here, and you have defrost, and what's this other one here? Oh, sorry, that's my apologies. Cabin heat, and then you have a defrost, and then you have cabin air. So that's what you're looking at there. We'll move back here again. And as well, those panels, if you want to change them, they are there with a click of a button. You can do that in flight while moving. Fuel's over here. Again, this was our vent. We can open and close that. And our aircraft sounds do change with this open and closed. Open and close that, and then these you can swing around to put the air in your desired area. That works for both the left and right as well. And there's your open and close vent for the other side. We can click this. Now, in this aircraft, the trim is up here. So you can click and hold it. Now you'll see this actually moves here. Or if I have this on a trim wheel, or sorry, a trim button for my joystick. So as we move this around, you can see our trim indicator moving there. And okay, it looks like this is actually a digital representation. So we'll check that again when we get powered up. Here's your, I think this is your lock to open and close the door. Actually, not sure there. Okay, so there it lets me open and close it. Let's actually see how that worked. And the reason I purchased this aircraft actually was, okay, see, it looks like that disables that. So that's your door lock. And here's the text string there in the back seat. Again, all pretty well. Let's see, I think I have a couple, there we go. Couple key settings there, and you have a small parcel shelf on the back. Again, you can see the flaps move. This is the VFlyteAir, and the reason I purchased this actually is VFlyte has a Ryan Navion 205 on the Xplane.org forums, and it is available free. So if this is an aircraft you think you might be interested in, if you want to try out one of their products, check out that Navion. Again, I did that just to see. I like general aviation aircraft and wanted to check some out, and that one happened to be from VFlyteAir, so I went and downloaded it. Really enjoyed it, so I thought this would be pretty cool. There's a couple other planes of theirs I'd like to try out also, but I think this is a great move for the developers or the marketing guys, whoever came up with the guys and gals that came up with the idea. It worked for Aerobast too. I mean, they have that Robin DR401, and I flew it, thought it was a blast, and went out and purchased the DA62, which you guys have seen on this channel as well. So we've taken a look at the exterior. We've looked around at the interior. We'll talk about the avionics a little bit more here. So we'll go ahead and start powering this up and take it for a flight. Another thing to show here down by the fuel selector is if you click the, you get the hand symbol there. And we have the wheel pants on. You can simply add those and remove those. Again, you've probably seen the liveries with and without. You can do this in flight as well. You have fuel. You can select your fuel this way, or you can of course use the Xplane standard method there. You can click down here for your glass or not. As I mentioned earlier, they're also available here in click regions on the panel. You can turn ground elements on. We get our wheel chocks and our remove before flight, our intake covers there. We can get rid of that. Hide internal glass. I actually didn't see what this is. Honestly, I've never clicked it. Okay, so that's just reflection on the glass itself. So if you have lower frame rates, actually probably what I should have done there with some traffic was probably to hide those. No steers. You can hide co-pilot and click make your co-pilot go away, and you can also show Avatab, which for those of you who have seen that LDA approach video, you saw we were using that as well. So it's stashed over here, and you can choose to hide it or keep it there, and I believe, yeah, and it moves as well, so you can move it around there however you like. Probably something like that's a little better so you can actually see all your gauges. So after the pre-flight, which would be of course our exterior inspection, we would turn our master switch on, and we're going to verify our fuel load, which I have topped the tanks off, as you can see here, and these are 25 gallon capacity in both the left and right, so a total of 50 gallons. Then we would turn the master switch off and then complete the exterior walk around inspection, checking for external damage, etc., etc. So we're going to go ahead now and go with the engine start. So a parking brake push, so we'll push that in. And set carburetor heat in the full cold position. So carb heat is here, pull is hot, so in is cold. Select the desired tank. We'll go ahead and start with our left. So that is off, there's our left. And I'm going to actually make this go away. And I'm going to hide our Avatab for the time being. I forget where to click on this. I think it was toward the... Oh, here we go. On the X. Okay, so we've selected our desired tank. Now we'll open the throttle approximately 1/4 inch. Your guess is as good as mine. That's probably closer to 1 inch. Turn the master switch to on. Turn the electric fuel pump to on, which is here. Move mixture to full rich, which we have now done. Engage the starter by rotating the magneto switch clockwise and pressing in. That doesn't work for us on this version. I'm reading from a Cherokee 140D, so we'll go ahead and hit this. And that was actually a pretty terrible thing. So park brake push actually means it's not on. So there you go. Alright, for the time being, we will, let's see, when it fires, advance the throttle to the desired setting. We're going to go ahead and set that at about 1,000 RPM. I'm going to turn off the fuel pump for now. It's a little bit loud, but that'll be on. Oh, and here's our indicator that we were talking about for trim. So you can see now that we have the engine running, it's there. So it's not actually tied to avionics, so I'm not sure how that's powered. It wasn't there when the engine was off, but now it is there. So we haven't even turned our master avionics on. So if the engine doesn't fire, you can actually you can prime it over here. You know, if the weather's cold, or you know, if that's a better way if it doesn't start. So you can go ahead and do that. There's the primer. And after that, I guess we could get our rotating beacon and our nav lights. Those could be on. And I'm reading this from a Cherokee 140D model, actually checklist. So it did not have the nav lights and beacon lights in the actual checklist, the expanded checklist. So I didn't miss that. It just wasn't there. So if you're familiar with starting cold to dark, you usually have nav lights on when someone's in the flight deck, and then your beacon would come on. It's very possible due to the current drain on these that's maybe performed later. I don't know. That's just a theory there. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the avionics. There we can see our nice Aspen coming alive. And a couple of the things, let's talk about this real quick. As I showed before, the PFD, down here you get the arrow. If you click on the PFD, you get the hand and the pop out. We'll hide those. You can see on the bottom left we have course. If you click this is mode. So airspeed and course, whichever is selected in the magenta. If you adjust that, you can see our course changing. If we select it again, IAS, now this is not an auto throttle, but you can see it moving up here on the PFD. But it's kind of like a reminder that just sits there. It gives you a visual cue. And again, we have course and IAS there. Let's set that at, I don't know, let's say 90. Now if we wait, this will turn back blue. We also have our true and ground speed, temperature, and wind here, so it's also something good to notice. Here we have blue, so now it's locked in. If we go over to the heading, if we adjust this, you can see this is our heading caret. If we press and hold the heading, If we press and hold heading, you can see the bug snapped to our present heading. Again, we can move that. Single click again, and we get our altitude reminder. Again, this is not it's not coupled with the auto throttle, or sorry, the autopilot. It's just a visual reminder. Don't know if this rev is like a reset or a reversionary mode. There is nothing else for it to flip back to, but our range controls our digital HSI at the bottom. We can turn on our tapes there, our speed tapes. Our V speeds, we can have those enabled or disabled. Barometer, of course, in millibars or inches. Auto course, I actually don't know what that is. Declutter level. This one does not function. And also you might be saying, how do I get this to work? Well, if you go back to, let's see, menu, if you click barometer, you see nothing works there. You get your minimums. You deselect that, you have one of two. Here's your ARC or 360 mode. Here's page 2. Next rad, I don't know if this actually functions. Traffic, I also am not sure about. Barometer does not function. If you click on the PFD and then you click barometer, you can see here we get barometer in magenta. Now our barometer works. So that's how you adjust your barometer. You have to do this pop out. Or actually now with this selected, it'll let us do it. Let's see. Yeah, see, that doesn't work. We click our PFD. We click Baro. Now we can actually click this away with this selected as Baro. Now we can adjust it. So that was a little bit annoying when the first few times I flew this aircraft, learning how to do that. Other than that, it's a pretty standard general aviation aircraft. We'll hop in it, take it for a flight, and probably roll in some video here, let you guys see it. We'll pick you up closer to departure. But one of the other things I did forget to mention here Normally when you do your run-up, I forget what the run-up is. I think on the Cessnas it's like 1800 or something like that. You generally get the RPM drop with your mag, as you can see here. We're about 1400. And with both, we're back at 15. Now here you can actually pull your carb heat and you can see the drop, so that you know your carb heat's working. So that is modeled and very cool. Figured I would show that to you guys here as we prepare for the flight. And one of the things I've noticed with this airplane, probably won't matter as much for you guys that have rudders. I do not use rudders here. Tim does at his house. But if you turn hard, it'll engage, or it feels like it engages the parking brake actually, or the differential braking. So if you saw there, I had to throttle up pretty hard, get it moving, and then start to turn the airplane. Otherwise it kind of grinds to a halt in an undignified manner, but that's okay. We're gonna slide out here. Of course, Deer Valley is very busy. I believe it's one of the, if not the busiest general aviation airport in America by takeoffs and or operations, I guess, takeoffs and landing. You can see here we're picking up, 5 aircraft here in the pattern plus the one that landed. So it's extremely busy up here. This is obviously a default scenery. They have missed a few buildings that are on that side, but that's okay. We'll skip further to the end here and get ready. Well, we'll take off, do probably some slow flight and turn around and kind of land, just to let you guys get a feel for if this is something you're interested in or not. I've enjoyed it, and hopefully you would too. And as we roll out onto the runway here, we'll take a look, make sure our path is clear there. We have that arriving traffic to the left. We'll continue to roll out, take off to the east today. And we'll line up here. Performance is what you'd expect with an engine and aircraft of this size. Our rotation is going to be about 60 knots. You can see there the V-speeds are actually listed on the speed tape there on the left side. And as I had mentioned with this aircraft, you get a little bit of the differential braking, so I'd have to play with that and see how that's tethered to the yoke or the rudder activity. But we'll climb out here, and we're gonna do a right pattern here as I've drifted off the center line. We'll try and get that back over, but we'll do a right-hand pattern. As you can see, we still got traffic behind us and on the other runway there. So we'll swing out down. I'll kind of clip it a little bit. I don't want to waste your time too much. But we're going to go out to the west here, do a little bit of slow flight, and then bring it back in for an approach and landing. And I had mentioned earlier about the vent. So there you can see by opening and closing that, we get the different sounds with the F mod again. We'll take a look again here at the exterior of the aircraft now that we're in flight. We're actually flying over believe this is the Loop 101. Kind of lost where we're at in the video now. It might be I-17 North. But you take a look. The good texturing, the lighting effects, of course, naturally with the game. You see the exhaust coming out there at the bottom. So very pretty aircraft. And this is, well, you can see I have the wheel pants on here. I thought at first this was the VFlyte livery, but it's not. We'll continue our flight up here, and then we'll do some more slow flight. You can see now the weather's updated. Here we have the thermometer, which is stuck on the front windshield, or windscreen. And then we have the sun visors. If you click and drag those, they rotate independently left and right. So we'll do that, and then there you go. Now we're going to level off here at about 5,200 feet. I'm going to kick off the autopilot. We're going to pull power back here and take a look at some of the stall and slow flight characteristics. We're going to extend the flaps here to an approach level there. You can see we're at 20 degrees. And there we get the horn. And if you watch, our speed now is 55. Now you can see we're holding the nose up still. We're at about 10 degrees. But we're falling vertically. We're now at 5,000 feet, so we've lost about 2,000, and the airflow is disrupting over the ailerons. And then we drop it, and try and avoid that secondary stall there. Bring the airspeed up, and then we'll try it again here. So we'll pull the nose up past 10 degrees. You see airspeed bleeding off. We get the horn again at about 52 knots and about 10 degrees nose up. And again, we'll recover, now down to 4,600 feet. We'll retract the flaps now and try a power on stall, which this would be more representative of a takeoff or a departure, where you're going to have high power and a clean configuration. So we have max power. We see airspeed decreasing again here. You can see altitude is still increasing. And we're continuing to climb. As you can see, airspeed still decreasing, and we're at about 15 degrees nose up. And we're holding it at 15. You can see the nose oscillating just slightly as we're down now to about 50 knots. And altitude is just about at a maximum. We have the stick all the way back. And the aircraft's actually kind of hanging right there at about 45 knots. And then we're going to go ahead and turn. And you can see this aircraft is extremely stable. We're going to drop the nose now. So it almost stopped gaining altitude, but never totally started falling. Again, we'll release that pressure, build up some more airspeed. Just in case you ask yourself, how fast does the Cherokee 140 roll? We're going to go ahead and demonstrate that. I'm going to roll it to 30 degrees, and then I'll do a maximum deflection back to the left, and then we'll stop it again at about 30, and then we'll do it again the other way. So the roll rate's fairly decent. I mean, it's not a Edge 540 or an Extra 300 or a Pitts, but it can get out of its own way. So again, it's very stable. You see very little yaw effect with it. And again, we'll demonstrate that here from the exterior. And as I noted on the ground, only the downward deflecting aileron is animated, and I would imagine that that is fairly accurate, but I don't have any Cherokee pilots, and I've only flown a Cherokee once, and I don't really remember whether that was part of it. We'll let it kind of sit here, and then we'll start kicking the rudder. You see, we get a little bit of roll coupled with the rudder deflection as we kind of throw it back and forth a little violently. And we'll take a look here at our stalls again. You can see this is our power off one. We have the flaps down in a landing configuration. And you just see how benign the characteristics are, how stable the platform is, and probably roll in here the power all install as well, and then we'll clip it to the approach and landing. And after that demonstration, we're now back at Deer Valley. We're sped up slightly here behind some traffic on approach to the east runway here on the right side. I forget what it is. Maybe 09. So I'm going to slow it back down here as we near the short final and bring the aircraft on in. Here we go, back to normal speed. And obviously with the slow flight characteristics, that we were showing a minute ago, landing is pretty easy once you get the sight picture. You just bring the nose slightly up and hold it off. It settles nicely onto the ground there. And again, you got to watch for that differential braking. I really need to look at that, see what's causing that. But we'll go ahead and roll out here, do one final shot. And thank you for joining us today on Flight Brothers FT. Hope you've enjoyed the look at the VFlyteAir Cherokee 140 Modern. Please click like, join us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And until next time, plan the flight and fly the plan.